Welcome to the Stop Down Photography Podcast, episode 81. I'm Scott Davenport. Today's topic, seeing photos instead of seeking photos. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm glad to be back with you for another chat about photography, this passion we share. And in today's episode, let's take one more step on our never-ending journey of photography. Yes, I'm back. As you recall, I took a hiatus from the podcast for the month of August. I was in a creative rut, and it was time to take a short break, refresh, recharge. The break was nice, and it's also nice to once again be sharing thoughts about photography with you. And in this episode, I want to share a story about photo opportunities that are all around us. Instead of seeking a particular photo, a photo of a famous subject or a photogenic city, an iconic location, can we see the photo opportunities in our everyday travels? There are photographs to be had all around us all the time. We just need to be open to seeing them. It's something I've been thinking more and more about these past few weeks. I hope you enjoy the episode. And if you do, please share it with a friend on social media with your camera club. And if you can, please leave a rating for the podcast. Fresh ratings really help other photographers find the show. iPhone and Mac OS users, you can rate directly in Apple Podcasts app. You can also leave a rating through the web at podchaser.com. Links are in the show notes. Okay, so let me set the stage for you. So life had me on the road to Fallbrook, California, an inland town about an hour's drive north of San Diego, and I was not there for photo purposes. My daughter had a school-related event in the area, and that was going to last about 4 or so hours. So not enough time really to drive back to San Diego, do something else, only just to turn around and go back and get her. I'd burn the whole morning just driving back and forth to Fallbrook. But it was also too much time to just sit around and wait for the event to take place. This wasn't a spectator event. This was something that, I was not permitted to be in the space while they're working on this thing. So I know myself well enough that I wouldn't work remotely on my laptop for 4 hours, and like from a coffee shop or my car or something like that. So I had a morning to spend in Fallbrook. I figure I'll do some photography. Now, when one thinks about landscape photography, well, Fallbrook, California doesn't jump to mind, right? It's a nice town. I enjoyed my time there. But my initial reaction looking around was, there's really not a lot here, because it's not the place that landscape photographers would seek out to make photos. But I have these hours available to me. I wanted to do some photography, so I switched gears. Instead of seeking out a singular photograph or an epic landscape, those, even a postcard shot really, but those photos that we often seek as landscape photographers, well, what if I just look around? What is available? What is the world presenting to me on that day? Well, the morning was a little foggy. It was a lot of low-hanging fog on the ground, and I took advantage of that. I did this easy hike through the Los Jilgueros Preserve. It's a relaxed, subdued kind of place, a nature preserve that just follows along one of the main roads through town. A little patch of nature among an otherwise residential area, a built-up town. So this morning fog was nice. It was adding ambiance. It kept the temperature tolerable. Groups of oak trees were there. And I ended up doing a lot of handheld work, close-ups of plants, some roots. There was some old farming equipment that was slowly being reclaimed by the earth. As the fog burnt off pretty quickly, actually, it played among the trees and the other brush and nature areas in there. There was a couple of covered tunnels insofar as they were covered by trees on both sides, so you had some of those types of photos. And after about 30 minutes or so, I'm on my way back to the car, and the fog was nearly burned off. The preserve looked very different, I would say less photogenic, maybe unphotogenic at that point. But the reason I share this story, really the goal of my hike was a blend. It was some exercise, but it was also some photography. And instead of knowing I want to go to this place and make this photo, I just put the camera in my hand, started to walk, made myself open to what the world presented, and it worked out pretty well. And I found photographs to capture. I didn't seek a particular photo. I let myself be available to see photos that were there. Not mind-blowing photos, not epic landscapes, no dramatic weather that day, but nevertheless, solid work, good photos, and they were right there in front of me. An interesting little sidebar about this trip. One of my favorite images is from one of the most mundane places you can think of, a parking lot. You go into a parking lot, and I'm talking about a parking lot in front of a bunch of stores, your grocery store, your coffee shop, the strip mall kind of thing. If you're familiar with the U.S., strip malls are just a whole bunch of concrete, whole bunch of storefronts. But through the parking lot, there's these little planting areas that kind of, peppered across the parking lot, a patch of dirt surrounded by some curbing and some concrete. Maybe there's a single tree in it or some low ground cover. Well, I'm stopping to get coffee after my hike, parked next to one of these planters, not really even thinking about it. I stepped out of the car, and there at my knees were these plants kind of like a golden wheat color, and I'm terrible with plants. I can kind of recognize an oak tree, but that's about it. So I'm not sure what kind of plant this thing was, but the light was hitting it. So these little sprigs of plant that are reaching up, they're just catching this nice morning light. So grab the camera, crouch down, handheld, just open the aperture up really wide, angled upward a little bit so that it's just the plants, the catching the light, and then blue sky, pop, pop, pop. And a photo that I was both surprised with and happy with. And I'll put this photo on stopdownpodcast.com for this show so you can see what I'm talking about. You can hit the show notes. There'll be a link for this episode in the show notes so you can see that photo. But I walk by scenes like this all the time, and just a little shift in thinking, and then I could see them. I was open to the possibility. And it's a good reminder, as landscape photographers, or photographers in general, we don't need to constantly be seeking out photographs when we're open to seeing the photos that are just right there. Thanks as always to folks that support the show through Patreon, through the Support the Show page, through comments on YouTube, comments on the websites, ratings for the podcast. I can't tell you enough how much that really fuels the engine of this show, keeps me energized about photography. So thank you very, very much for any and all level of support you're giving this show and my work. If you're interested in learning about more ways that you can support the show, many of which cost $0, zero cost ways you can support my work, check the show notes. Hit the Support the Show button that is on every page of stopdownpodcast.com, and you can learn more. And that's going to do it for this week. I am tinkering around with another topic for next week. I do hope to be back at the microphone and have something in your podcast feed next week. And until then, my name's Scott Davenport. Have fun.